When Thomas left for his naval assignment in the Mediterranean, Elena moved into the Mitchell family home for comfort and support. She didn't expect to share a roof with Ryan, her husband's younger brother, who had recently come back from Paris after 2 years abroad. Ryan had grown up. No longer the lanky boy she once met at her wedding, he was now confident, sharp, and observant. He carried a camera everywhere, capturing fleeting moments and hidden stories. From the beginning, there was tension. Not the kind that burns with desire, but the kind that simmers with things unsaid. One rainy afternoon, Elena had just returned from work, soaked. Everyone was out, and she went upstairs to change. She didn't know Ryan had come back early from a photo shoot. As she walked across the hallway in a robe toward the bathroom, Ryan accidentally opened his bedroom door right at that moment. Their eyes locked. She froze. He turned away instantly, apologizing profusely. But the damage was done. What followed was silence, heavy and uncomfortable. But in that silence, something else stirred in Ryan. Ryan tried to act normal, but something had changed in how he looked at Elena. He was suddenly more attentive, more present. He'd ask about her day, bring her coffee, or sit nearby while she graded papers. Elena sensed it and became uneasy. One evening, they were alone on the porch during a blackout. Candlelight and rain outside made the world feel quieter than usual. Ryan admitted he'd always admired her, not just for her beauty, but her strength, her loyalty to Thomas, and how she carried herself with grace. Elena didn't know how to respond. She respected Ryan, but his words made her heart race, not with excitement, but fear. A week later, while cleaning the living room, Elena found a notebook under the couch. Inside were pages of handwritten thoughts and sketches of her. Moments she didn't realize he had captured. Her watering the plants, laughing on a video call with Thomas, staring out the window during the evening news. She confronted Ryan that night. He confessed. He was falling in love with her, but he knew it was wrong. He promised he wouldn't act on it, but he couldn't lie about his feelings. Elena told him to stop. You love the idea of me, not me. I'm your brother's wife. Ryan left that night, driving aimlessly into the storm. Days turned into weeks. Ryan didn't come back. Elena tried to refocus her energy on her students and her letters to Thomas. But one day, a message arrived. Thomas had been injured and was returning home. Elena felt the ground shift beneath her. When Thomas arrived, he was different. The injury had taken part of his sight, and the trauma made him distant. Ryan, hearing the news, returned as well. The three of them were now under the same roof again. It didn't take Thomas long to sense the tension between Elena and Ryan. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Thomas asked Elena a quiet question. Do you love him? No, she replied. But he thought he did. Thomas nodded slowly. I trust you. But I need to trust him too. And right now, I don't. By morning, Ryan was gone again, this time for good. Epilogue. 2 years later, Elena and Thomas relocated to a quieter town in Oregon. His sight was partially restored, and their relationship was healing, slowly and with care. One day, a package arrived. Inside was a photo of a tree outside the old Mitchell home, taken during a thunderstorm. On the back, a single sentence. Some silences are too loud to ignore. I'm learning to listen. Ryan. Elena smiled softly, closed the photo album, and returned it to the shelf. Thomas may have been physically home, but emotionally, he remained distant. Elena stood by him patiently, nursing him through nightmares, long silences, and bursts of anger. Still, his words remained few. One evening, Thomas finally broke. I read one of his letters, he said. Ryan wrote it before he left. He said he'd loved someone for the first time in his life. He didn't name you, but I knew. Elena froze. Did you ever doubt me? He shook his head. Never. But I doubted him. And maybe that hurt more. Later that week, Thomas drove out to a coastal town for physical therapy. When he returned, he looked changed, not healed, but lighter. Elena asked him what had happened. I visited Ryan, he said. He's living in a small cabin in Port Townsend, still taking photos. He looked older somehow. She didn't ask what they talked about. She just reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. Months passed. Life began settling into something resembling normal. Elena's school had an upcoming art exhibit, and a local photography studio donated several old cameras for students to experiment with. One of the students discovered a roll of undeveloped film inside a vintage Nikon. The school decided to develop it for fun. When the photos came back, Elena's heart skipped a beat. It was Ryan's work. Undoubtedly. Photos of the Mitchell backyard. The porch. A woman's silhouette near the garden. The same moments from the notebook she'd found, only now on film. But the last image stunned her. A picture of Thomas, unaware, sitting in his uniform near the fireplace, Elena in the background holding a mug, smiling. A quiet, domestic moment. Love. Real love, not obsession, not fantasy. Just stillness. Elena took the print, and kept. Years later, Elena and Thomas had moved again, this time into a modest lake house outside Bend, Oregon. He had retired early. She was now vice principal of a local school. They lived a quieter life, one rebuilt with time, pain, and care. Ryan had become a ghost of their past, though his name would occasionally surface in a conversation or a photo. Then, on a snowy winter morning, a letter arrived. It was postmarked from Alaska. The handwriting was familiar, Ryan's. Inside were two things, a photograph and a note. The photograph showed a wild, snowy landscape, with one single figure standing in the distance, surrounded by white silence. Elena could barely make out his face, but she knew it was Ryan. Thomas's health began to improve. His vision was no longer perfect, but he adapted. What didn't heal as quickly was the silence between him and his parents. After Ryan's disappearance, the family fractured. His father, George, blamed Thomas for Ryan leaving. Elena encouraged reconciliation. "You have the right to be angry," she told Thomas, "but not forever." Eventually, they visited the Mitchell home. It was quieter now. Martha had aged. George had grown bitter. The visit was civil but tense. That night, Elena found a framed photograph in the guest room. It was taken by Ryan, Thomas, and George laughing beside a barbecue, back before everything changed. A year later, Elena received an invitation in the mail. It was an exhibit flyer from the North Wind Gallery in Juneau, Alaska. Witnesses of Silence, a collection by R. Mitchell. She showed it to Thomas. He didn't speak. He just nodded slowly. "I think he wants us to come." They went. The gallery was small but flooded with light. The photos were haunting. Landscapes swallowed by mist, abandoned fishing cabins, blurry portraits of solitary people. In the last room was a wall of black and white prints labeled "The House in the Trees." They were images of the old Mitchell home, but not the people. The spaces. The porch. The garden. The guest room door. A woman's shawl draped over a chair. A half-filled teacup. A blurred glimpse of Thomas's navy uniform hanging near a window. A note beneath the final image read, "Love is not what we hold. It's what we carry and let go." Elena cried. Thomas placed his hand gently on her back. After the exhibit, a young woman approached Elena. She introduced herself as Clara, Ryan's assistant. "I was told to give this to you if you ever came." She handed over a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter addressed to both Elena and Thomas. "I used to think leaving made me stronger, but I left because I couldn't trust myself. I loved you both in different ways. I envied the quiet between you. I tried to steal a feeling I didn't understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm finally at peace. This gallery, it's my goodbye." There was no return address. Elena and Thomas decided to visit the cabin in Port Townsend, where Ryan had once stayed. They found it locked but peered through the windows. Inside were dozens of notebooks, photos, dried wildflowers, a hand-drawn sketch of the Mitchell home's back garden. On the kitchen table was a single Polaroid, faded but visible. It was the three of them, Thomas, Ryan, Elena, laughing at some forgotten joke a long time ago. That winter, Thomas fell ill. His injury had created complications. The doctors were hopeful, but cautious. Elena stayed by his side night and day. One morning, she woke up to find Thomas staring out the hospital window. "You ever wonder," he asked, "if Ryan ever forgave himself?" She replied, "I think he did, but only after he stopped trying to be someone else." Clara mailed Elena a package she found while cleaning Ryan's studio. Inside was a notebook with a leather cover. The entries were raw, chaotic, poetic. They chronicled Ryan's inner battles, his guilt, his therapy sessions, his self-imposed exile. One entry was marked, "The day I let her go." She smiled in the sky that evening.
She never looked at me that way.
That's when I knew I wasn't her story. Just a sentence she was kind enough to read aloud. Thomas's health worsened briefly before stabilizing. He and Elena began writing a memoir, not about the love triangle, but about resilience, about silence, about the unseen wars we fight at home. They titled it, "The Wind Carries Names." They dedicated it to Ryan. Years later, Elena became a principal. She mentored a troubled student named Miles, a quiet boy with a gift for drawing. After Thomas's death, Elena began sorting through his things, his journals, old uniforms, boxes filled with letters he never sent. Tucked deep in a drawer was a flash drive labeled Echoes in Ryan's handwriting. She hesitated, then plugged it into her laptop. It contained hundreds of photos, some familiar, others unseen. But one folder was labeled, "Elena.
Not to keep.
To remember." Inside were quiet moments from her life she didn't know had been captured. Her asleep on a classroom desk during parent-teacher conferences. Laughing while brushing snow off Thomas's coat. Crying silently at the kitchen sink the night after Thomas's injury. A note accompanied the folder. "I took these before I understood boundaries. I never meant to take her from him. I only wanted to understand how someone could be so light in the middle of storm." Elena closed the file. She didn't delete it. She didn't need to. The past no longer haunted her. 5 years passed. Elena was older now, still graceful, still composed. One autumn, she returned to Seattle to visit Martha Mitchell, now in hospice care. Martha, weakened but sharp, said something unexpected. He came back once.
Ryan.
Just for an hour. Said he had to see the house. Said he wasn't a ghost anymore. Elena sat still. Her hands trembled. He didn't come in. Just stood by the tree. Said he'd been watching it for years. Said it had stopped growing. Elena smiled sadly. Because it was waiting. Before Elena left, Martha handed her a small locket. "I never opened it. He left it for you." Inside was a pressed daisy and a photograph of the Mitchell home under snowfall, taken from outside, as if the photographer was never meant to belong. One final letter arrived the following spring. Postmarked from Greenland. No return address. Inside, a single page. "There are things we never speak of. Not because they're shameful, because they were never ours to claim. You were never mine. But you are my compass. You showed me what staying looks like. If the silence ever grows too loud again, look for the tree. I'll be there, even if only in wind." Years later, Elena passed peacefully in her sleep. Her final request, to have her ashes scattered beneath that tree in the Mitchell backyard. When the family gathered, the sky was silent, the wind still. But for a fleeting moment, someone swore they saw a figure just beyond the woods, watching, smiling, disappearing with the leaves. And so, the silence lived on, no longer as absence, but as memory. One day, he asked her, "Can people disappear but still love you?"